You know, there's a specific kind of rain we get here in Seattle. It's not just water falling from the sky, it's a mood. A gray blanket that smothers everything until you forget what the sun looks like. And on a Tuesday in November, that rain was trying its level best to wash the city of Seattle into the Puget Sound. I was sitting in my beat-up Ford F-150, the kind with more rust than paint, listening to the windshield wipers slap out a rhythm of failure against the glass. And I was tired, not just the I need a nap kind of tired, but the bone-deep exhaustion that comes from being a single dad, a small business owner, and a guy who hadn't felt a spark of hope in 6 years. My name is Caleb Vance, and if you looked at my hands, you'd see the story of my life written in calluses and scars, stained with walnut varnish and sawdust because I restore antique furniture for a living, trying to fix broken things because I couldn't fix my own marriage. I was idling at a red light, staring at the bus stop across the street, and that's when I saw her. She was huddled under the plexiglass shelter, wearing oversized medical scrubs that looked like they'd been washed 1,000 times, shivering so hard I could see it from 20 yards away. But it wasn't the cold that caught my attention. It was the way her shoulders were shaking. She was sobbing, the kind of weeping where you're trying to be invisible, trying to keep the world from seeing that you've completely fallen apart. I had a rule, a strict one: mind your own business, keep your head down, pick up my daughter Lily from school, and go home. But watching this woman, who looked like she'd just lost a war she didn't know she was fighting, something in my chest twinged. It was the same way I felt when I looked at a chair with a broken leg. I just wanted to help it stand up again. I rolled down the window, the rain instantly soaking my sleeve. "Hey," I called out, feeling stupid immediately. "You okay? You need a lift somewhere?" I expected her to tell me to get lost, to look at me with that city-hardened suspicion. Instead, she lifted her head, and I saw eyes that were dark, intelligent, and absolutely haunted. She hesitated, looking at the bus schedule that hadn't been updated in months, then looked back at my truck. "I don't have any cash," she said, her voice barely audible over the traffic. "I'm not a taxi," I shot back, trying to sound gentler than I felt. "Just a guy with a heater that works, mostly." Her name was Elena. She didn't offer a last name, and I didn't ask. She climbed in, smelling like antiseptic in rain, and for the first 10 minutes, we didn't say a word. The heater rattled, blowing lukewarm air at us, but she leaned into it like it was a lifeline. My phone buzzed on the console. It was Lily. I put it on speaker. "Daddy," her voice chirped. "I can't figure out the photosynthesis drawing. The leaves look like green blobs." I smiled, the first real smile I'd had all day. "It's okay, bug. Just draw the sun really big. The sun fixes everything, remember?" Elena looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw a crack in her armor. "Tell her to add arrows," Elena whispered, her voice raspy. "Arrows going in for light, arrows going out for oxygen. It helps visualize the exchange." I relayed the message. Lily squealed, "Oh, that makes sense. Thanks, Daddy." I hung up and looked at Elena. "Thanks," I said. "You good with science?" She looked out the window, her expression shutting down again. "I used to be," she murmured. "Now I just change bedpans and check vitals." We dropped her off at a crumbling apartment complex on the south side, a place where the streetlights were busted and the vibe was heavy. "Thanks for the ride," she said, opening the door. "Keep the heater running, Caleb. It's cold out there." And then she was gone, leaving a wet spot on the seat and a lingering sense of mystery that I didn't have time to unravel. My life was a series of calculations. How much specialized mahogany could I afford this month? Could I stretch the grocery budget to get Lily those art supplies she wanted? I was playing the role of mom and dad, trying to braid hair with fingers that were clumsy and thick, trying to cook dinners that didn't come out of a box, trying to fill the silence that my ex-wife, Sarah, left behind when she decided that being a mother in Seattle wasn't as exciting as being a lifestyle consultant in Los Angeles. Sarah left 6 years ago, signed the papers, and never looked back, leaving me with a 3-year-old and a heart that had turned into a fortress. I didn't date. I didn't socialize. I worked, I parented, I slept. That was the routine. But life has a funny way of interrupting your scheduled programming. 3 days after the rainstorm, I got the call every parent dreads: the school nurse. Lily had taken a spill off the monkey bars. I broke speed limits getting to County General, my heart hammering a hole in my ribs. I burst into the waiting room, panicked, looking for my little girl, and I heard a familiar voice. "It's okay, Lily, look at me. Follow my finger. Good job." I rounded the curtain, and there she was, Elena. She wasn't wearing the baggy scrubs this time. She looked sharper, focused, checking Lily's pupil dilation with a practiced efficiency that seemed, well, overqualified for an intake nurse, the rain lady. Lily chirped, pointing at Elena. "Dad, she knows about the arrows." Elena looked up, surprised to see me, and for a second, her professional mask slipped. "She's got a mild concussion, Caleb. Pupils are equal and reactive. I want to keep her for observation for an hour, but she's going to be fine. No gymnastics for a week." The way she spoke, it wasn't the hesitant voice from the truck. It was commanding. It was the voice of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I thanked her, probably too profusely, and she just gave me a tight, sad smile and disappeared back into the chaos of the dot. We started seeing her around after that. Portland is a big city, but the struggling parts of it are a small town. We saw her at the farmer's market, buying the bruised apples because they were half price. Lily, being Lily, waved her over. "We bought too much kale. My daughter lied she hates kale. You have to help us eat it." We ended up sharing a bench, tearing off chunks of a baguette, and I watched Elena soften. She laughed at Lily's jokes. She asked me about wood grain and joinery. And for the first time in years, I felt like a human being, not just a dadbot. She started coming to our community garden plot. "I'm terrible at gardening. I can build a trellis, but I can't keep a plant alive to save my life. Elena, though, she had a touch. She took our sad, wilting tomato plants and whispered life back into them. 'You're drowning them,' she told me one afternoon, her hands covered in dirt. 'Roots need to breathe. Caleb, if you smother them, they rot. You have to trust them to find the water.'" I looked at her, kneeling in the dirt, sunlight catching the stray hairs escaping her messy bun, and I realized she wasn't talking about tomatoes. She was talking about survival. We fell into a rhythm. Sunday dinners at my place because she clearly wasn't eating enough. I'd make lasagna, usually burning the edges, and she'd eat it like it was gourmet. We'd sit on the fire escape after Lily fell asleep, watching the city lights, talking about everything and nothing. But she never talked about her past. Whenever I asked where she was from or why she moved to Seattle, she'd deflect. "East Coast," she'd say. "Just needed a change of scenery." I respected the walls because I had my own. I figured she was running from a bad breakup or a debt collector. I never imagined the truth. The bubble burst on a Thursday. I was delivering a custom rocking chair to the pediatric wing of the hospital, a donation I made every year in honor of my mom. I was carrying this heavy oak piece down the hallway when I heard raised voices. Coming from the administration office. "You have some nerve showing your face in a hospital, Dr. Rossi," a man's voice sneered. "After the circus you caused in Chicago? You're lucky we even let you change bandages here." I froze. "Dr. Rossi?" I peered around the corner. Elena was standing there, back straight, chin high, facing down a guy in a three-piece suit who looked like he cost more than my house. It was Dr. Sterling, the new medical director. "I reported a crime, Arthur," Elena said, her voice like steel. "Your friends were falsifying trial data for profit. Kids were getting sick. I didn't cause a circus. I stopped a massacre. You destroyed a billion-dollar merger." Sterling shouted, his face turning purple. "You were the top pediatric surgeon in Illinois, Elena. Now look at you, a glorified nurse's aide in a rain-soaked dump. I hope your conscience keeps you warm at night because your career is dead. If you step out of line once, just once, I'll have you scrubbing toilets." My head was spinning. Surgeon, top in Illinois? I backed away, my insecurity flaring up like a grease fire. I thought of Sarah, who was a high-powered consultant, who looked at my sawdust-covered life and decided she deserved better. Sarah, who treated me like a stepping stone. I walked out of the hospital, the rocking chair feeling heavier with every step. I felt lied to. I felt stupid. I thought Elena was like me, broken, scraping by. But she wasn't. She was one of them. She was slumming it. Later that night, Elena stopped by the workshop. She looked tired, defeated. "Hey," she said, trying to smile. "I missed the bus. Thought maybe I didn't look up from the lathe. The wood shavings were flying, and I kept my safety glasses on. I heard you today," I said, my voice cold. "With Sterling." She went still. "Caleb, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped, turning off the machine. "That you're actually a hotshot surgeon? That this whole poor nurse act is just what? Penance? A sabbatical? What are we to you, Elena? Me and Lily? Are we your little charity case? A way to feel real before you go back to your penthouse in Chicago? It's not like that," she pleaded, stepping closer, her eyes filling with tears. "I lost everything, Caleb. I blew the whistle on a pharmaceutical company that was paying off doctors. They sued me, they blackened my name, they took my license, my savings, my home. I came here because nobody knew me. I'm not slumming it. I'm hiding." "You're lying," I said, the hurt from my divorce bleeding into my voice. "People like you always leave." "Sarah left. You'll leave too. Once you get your reputation back, once you get bored of the blue-collar life, you'll be gone. I can't let Lily get attached to another woman who views us as temporary." She looked at me, and the light went out of her eyes. "I am not your ex-wife, Caleb, and I thought you of all people saw me, not the title." She placed it. "She doesn't have for hours," I screamed. "She's burning up." I looked around frantically, and then I saw her. Elena was stocking a supply cart down the hall. I didn't care about our fight. I didn't care about my pride. I yelled her name. "Elena, help." She turned, saw me, saw Lily, and the supply cart went flying. She sprinted over, not as the nurse's aide, but as the surgeon she used to be. She took one look at Lily, touched her neck, checked her eyes. "Meningitis," she said, her voice cutting through the noise of the air like a knife. "Bacterial. She's crashing." She picked Lily up from my arms. "I need a gurney, now." She barked at the triage nurse. "Room 4 is open," the nurse stammered. "But Dr. Sterling said." "I don't care what Sterling said," Eleanor roared, her eyes blazing. "This child has acute bacterial meningitis. If we don't start ceftriaxone and steroids in the next 5 minutes, she dies. Move." She wheeled Lily into the trauma room, kicking the door open. I tried to follow, but a security guard held me back. Through the glass, I watched Eleanor Rossi work. She was a conductor of a chaotic orchestra. She was shouting orders, inserting IVs with hands that didn't shake, overriding the resident doctor who tried to argue with her. She was fierce. She was brilliant. She was fighting for my daughter's life with everything she had. And then, Sterling stormed in. I saw him pointing at her, yelling, trying to pull her away from the patient. I saw Elena turn on him, get right in his face, and say something that made him back down. She didn't stop working. She intubated Lily. She pushed the meds. She saved her. It was 3 hours later when the door opened. Elena walked out, looking exhausted, sweat plastering her hair to her forehead. She slumped against the wall and slid down to the floor. "She's stable," she whispered. "We caught it in time. She's going to be okay, Caleb." I dropped to my knees in front of her. I wanted to say a million things. I wanted to say I was sorry. I wanted to say I was a fool. But all I could do was grab her hands, those miraculous, healing hands, and press them to my forehead. "Thank you," I choked out. "Thank you." The silence of a hospital at 3 a.m. is heavy. It's a living thing, thick with the unsaid prayers of strangers and the beep-hiss-beep of machines keeping people alive. But for me, sitting in that plastic chair next to Lily's bed, it felt like a courtroom where I was the only defendant. Lily was sleeping, pale but peaceful, the IV line snaking down to her small arm. And across the room, Elena was curled up on a visitor's cot, still wearing her scrubs, dead to the world. She hadn't left, even after Dr. Sterling had threatened to have security throw her out, even after she'd technically broken about 50 hospital protocols to save my daughter. She had refused to leave the room until Lily's fever broke. I watched her sleep, watched the way her hand twitched slightly, probably dreaming of charts or scalpels or whatever it is geniuses dream about. I felt like the smallest man on earth. I had accused her of slumming it, of playing tourist in my difficult life, when the reality was she had sacrificed more for her integrity than I had ever risked for anything. She wasn't Sarah. Sarah left because things got hard. Elena stayed because things got hard. When she finally woke up, the sun was just starting to bleed gray light through the blinds. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, and immediately looked at the monitor, then at Lily. "Vitals are good," she murmured, her voice raspy. She looked at me then, and the guard went up. That heartbreaking, defensive wall she'd built. "I should go," she said, smoothing her scrubs. "Sterling is going to be on rounds soon. If he sees me here, he'll call the police for trespassing." "Wait," I said, standing up. My legs were numb, but my mind was clear. "Please, don't go, Caleb." We said what we said. "You were right. I'm a complication you don't need." She reached for her bag. "I was an idiot," I said, stepping between her and the door. "I was scared. When I found out who you were, all I could see was the distance between us. I saw a surgeon and a carpenter, and I thought, there's no way she stays. I projected all my baggage onto you. But last night, Elena, you didn't just save her. You fought for her. You risked your job, again, for her." She looked down at her shoes. "I took an oath, Caleb. First, do no harm." "It was more than an oath," I countered gently. "I saw you. That was love. And I am so incredibly sorry that I was too blind to see that. Your heart is the most impressive thing about you, not your resume." She looked up, tears brimming in those dark eyes. "I'm not going back to Chicago, Caleb. I turned down the reinstatement offer yesterday. They wanted me to sign an NDA, to say I was wrong about the safety protocols. I told them to go to hell. I'm staying in Seattle, but I'm broke. I'm blacklisted. I'm essentially a radioactive nurse." "You're not radioactive," I said, reaching out to take her hand. "You're brilliant, and you're home. If you want to be." Lily stirred then, groggy. "Daddy," she croaked. We both rushed to the bedside. "Hey, Bug," I whispered. "How you feeling?" "Thirsty," she whispered. Then she looked at Elena. "Hi, Rain Lady. Did you put the arrows in my blood to fight the bad germs?" Elena laughed, a wet, choked sound. "Yeah, sweetie. We put the arrows in. You're winning." The next few weeks were a blur of recovery and restructuring. I had a lot of making up to do. I spent every spare minute in the workshop. I wasn't making a table or a chair this time. I was making an apology. I used cherry wood, warm and durable, and inlaid it with maple. It was a medical cabinet, old school style, but modern. I carved the caduceus symbol into the front, but instead of snakes, I carved vines, tomato vines, like the ones she saved in the garden. I showed up at her new apartment, a tiny studio even smaller than the last one, with the cabinet in the back of my truck. She opened the door, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking surprised. "What is this?" "I figure," I said, leaning against the doorframe, "that if you're going to be the neighborhood's rogue doctor, you need a place to keep your supplies. I know you've been helping Mrs. Higgins with her diabetes meds, and I know you stitched up the kid from apartment for B when he cut his leg." She ran her hand over the wood, tracing the tomato vines. "You made this? For the healer who needs a home," I said. "And inside?" "Well, open it." She opened the doors. Inside, on the shelf, was a drawing from Lily. It was the three of us, me, Lily, and Elena standing in front of a building that said the Fix-It Shop. Below the drawing was a lease agreement. "What is this?" she asked, her hands shaking. "The unit next to my workshop became available," I explained. "It's commercial zoning. It's not a hospital, but it could be a clinic, a free clinic, or a sliding scale clinic. Whatever you want. I'll build the exam tables. I'll fix the plumbing. You fix the people. We do it together." She looked at me, and then she started to cry, not the defeated tears from the bus stop, but the kind of tears that water the soul. "You'd do that? You'd risk your business?" "I'm investing in my future," I said, "and my family. If you'll have us." She dropped the papers and hugged me, burying her face in my chest. "Yes," she sobbed. "Yes, we got to work. And let me tell you, if you think navigating the medical board is hard, try getting permits for a clinic in a warehouse district." But we did it. We scraped, we painted, we fought. The community rallied around us. Mrs. Higgins brought lunch. The guys from the local union donated electrical work, because I'd fixed their grandma's chairs. It became a community project. We opened the Rossi Vance Community Health Center 6 months later. It wasn't fancy. The waiting room chairs were mismatched antiques I'd restored. The reception desk was a repurposed bar top. But the care was world-class. Dr. Sterling actually tried to file a complaint to shut us down, citing zoning violations. That's when the Rain Lady went to the press. She gave an interview to the Seattle Times, laying out everything why she left Chicago, why she was here, and what Sterling had said to her. The public outcry was massive. Sterling was quietly asked to resign by the hospital board a month later. But the best moment wasn't the opening. It was a rainy Tuesday, exactly 1 year after we met. I was closing up the woodshop, wiping down the saws, when Elena walked in through the connecting door from the clinic. She looked tired, but happy. She was wearing her white coat, but underneath she had on jeans and boots. "Hey," she said, leaning against my workbench. "How's the dust?" "Manageable," I smiled. "How's the healing?" "Busy. We saw 20 patients today. Lily is in the waiting room teaching a kid how to draw perspective." I walked over to her, taking her hands, those hands that saved my daughter, those hands that held mine when I was drowning in fear. "Happy anniversary," I said. "Anniversary?" She raised an eyebrow. "1 year since I picked up a stranger in the rain." She smiled, and it lit up the dim workshop. "Best ride I ever took." "I was thinking," I said, pulling a small box out of my apron pocket. "Since we're already business partners and co-parents and best friends, maybe we should make it official." I opened the box. It wasn't a diamond. I couldn't afford the rock she deserved yet. It was a ring I'd made. Ebony wood with a thin band of silver running through it, strong, organic, unbreakable. "Caleb," she breathed. "I promise," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "to never let you weather a storm alone again. I promise to be the shelter. Will you marry me?" She didn't say yes. She just grabbed my face and kissed me, and that was answer enough. We stood there in the sawdust, the rain hammering on the tin roof above us, but inside, it was warm. We had built something out of wreckage. We were two broken people who found out that jagged edges fit together perfectly, if you just turn them the right way. So, here's the thing I want to leave you with. We live in a world that tells us to judge people by their titles, by their bank accounts, by their past mistakes. I almost missed out on the love of my life because I was insecure about her success and judgmental about her struggle. I almost let my fear dictate my future. If you see someone standing in the rain, literal or metaphorical, don't just drive by. Don't assume you know their story. Roll down the window. Offer the ride. Because you never know, the person you save might just be the one who saves you right back. What about you guys? Have you ever misjudged someone who turned out to be exactly what you needed? Or have you been the one judged? Let me know in the comments. And remember, roots need room to breathe, and people need room to grow. Thanks for listening.